Welcome to Creature Guy Live. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. We're going to be getting to some prehistoric to current animal news from around the world and take a look at some interesting animal videos. So, from SciTech Daily, new hell heron Spinosaurus discovered in the Sahara with giant blade crest. Okay, so this is a relatively new discovery. Uh, where's Well, that's definitely different. The Spinosaurus aegypticus, if this is a new direct species of the genus Spinosaurus, does not have this type of a crest. So let's see. A blade crested Spinosaurus discovered in the Sahara is rewriting the final chapter of dinosaur evolution. Um, well, I mean, Spinosaurus, the problem is that if this also occurred in the same time as the other Spinosaurus species, this would be towards the very end of the Spinosaurus lineage. So, a study published in Science reports the discovery of Spinosaurus mirabilis. Okay, so it is a new species of Spinosaurus. This is really good to hear. A newly identified Spinosaurus species from Niger. The fossils were uncovered in a remote part of the Central Sahara by a 20-member team led by Paul Sereno, PhD professor of organizational biology and anatomy at the University of Chicago.
I think that's an actor also, or was. I think he passed away.
No, he's still alive. You're talking about Paul Sereno? He was doing he did discoveries on, like, Suchomimus. Well, no.
I'm talking
He
about an actor.
mm,
Oh, it's Sorvino. It's not Sereno. Never mind.
yeah, it's okay. So the find provides important new insight to the final phase of Spinosaurid evolution. Um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, watching his interviews, his personality is kind of the same since the late 90s. Okay, so one of the most striking features of S. mirabilis is its enormous scimitar shaped crest. When researchers first spotted the crest in nearby chalk fragments on the desert surface in November 2019, they did not immediately understand what they had found. After returning in 2022 with a larger group and uncovering two additional crests, it became clear they were looking at a species previously unknown to science. Wow, okay. So they had already discovered certain specimens of this species back in late 2019. I I definitely had not heard of this. This is quite shocking. The crest surface texture and internal blood vessel channels suggest it was covered by keratin. Oh, yeah, definitely. Scientists believe it may have been brightly colored in life and curved upward like a blade, possibly serving as a visual display structure. That is definitely quite likely for practically any species of theropod dinosaur with this type of characteristic. And I'd say most creatures that have this type of a mutation as well. Interesting. It's actually quite distinct from Spinosaurus aegypticus. So, this animal, like even the skull, is somewhat different in just the way the teeth are aligned. But that sail, that is quite different from Spinosaurus aegypticus. Spinosaurus aegypticus tends to have a much more, um, I'd say, somewhat not necessarily spiky, but uneven sort of a um, back vertebrae appendage, whereas or just appendage structure. Well, I guess appendage that term's really used for like fingers and toes. Um, but what am I getting at? It's almost like the Spinosaurus sail specifically. The Spinosaur can refer to any species of the family of theropods called Spinosauridae, which first evolved somewhere between 135 and 140 million years ago at the towards the beginning of the early Cretaceous period, and would go extinct around 95 million years ago in the first 5 million years of the late Cretaceous. But yeah, it also seems like possibly a bit shorter compared to its body size. Spinosaurus aegypticus is a very tall sail. Now, the arms of this animal are huge. I mean, are immensely large. Now, you could say, well, Spinosaurus aegypticus also has quite large arms. But this one, maybe it's also because just hunched up against him. Here it looks a bit more slender. I like how much definition they gave it. It is interesting. This animal seems to have Slightly longer hind limbs compared to
Those legs
Spinosaurus.
are tiny.
Yeah, Spinosaurus aegypticus, but they don't have the muscle. Now, granted, Spinosaurus aegypticus, especially back in 2014, was given an extremely short and skinny, you could say. I wouldn't, almost like skinny fat legs for its size. And they have been quite um, muscled since, and I think even a bit of height has been given to the Spinosaurus aegypticus. But here, you can even tell that the claws are quite short too. Not like Spinosaurus. A very, I'd say, somewhat similar tail structure, though. Quite a robust neck structure. Let's take a further look. And it's eating a coelacanth, Mawsonia. The skull also reveals tightly interlocking upper and lower teeth that would have formed an effective trap for slippery fish. In this arrangement, teeth from the lower jaw extend outward between those of the upper jaw when the mouth closes. Similar tooth patterns are seen in other fish eating animals in the fossil record, including aquatic ichthyosaurs, semi aquatic crocodiles, and airborne pterosaurs. Among dinosaurs, however, this adaptation distinguishes Spinosaurus and its closest relatives. This find was so sudden and amazing, it was really emotional for our team. I'll forever cherish the moment in camp where we crowded around a laptop to look at the new species for the first time. After one member of our team generated 3D digital models of the bones, we found to assemble the skull on solar power in the middle of the Sahara. That's when the significance of the discovery really registered. Whoa. Okay. This is definitely not a small species of Spinosaur. Wow. That's quite a large crest. Yeah, that's Serena. Geesh. That's it's quite something. You can also tell that Spinosaurus is a very peripheral vision sort of a skull structure. So it's seeing more towards the side, probably a bit better behind it as well. And the nasal structure, if that's what I'm looking at, is like towards the back of the skull, which is very distinct from other species of theropods. Before this discovery, most Spinosaur fossils had been recovered from coastal sediments near ancient shorelines. This pattern led some researchers to propose that these fish eating theropods may have been fully aquatic hunters that pursued prey underwater. The new site in Niger paints a different picture. The fossils were found 500 to 1,000 kilometers from the nearest marine shoreline. Nearby were partial skeletons of long necked dinosaurs preserved in river deposits, indicating a forested inland environment crossed by waterways. I envisioned this theropod as a kind of hell heron that had no problem wading on its sturdy legs into 2 meters or 6.5 feet of water, but probably spent most of its time stalking shallower traps for the many large fish of the day. Yeah, I think even certain people today might still envision Spinosaurus as being a very like swimmable, or I guess you could say aquatic. I thought that was a word. Aquatic animal with like an efficient swimming ability, and it is still bit debated, but it does look like, at least for the most part, that it's more agreed upon in our community that simply Spinosaurus, as well as like Egypticus, would simply stay in the shallower regions of different rivers, lakes, ponds, and just wait for fish to come by. Hmm. So fossilized head crests. Whoa. Oh, that's the head crest. Wow.
Wait, are there 2 of them?
I think that's the model. Or well, I don't know. That's quite a different shape. Hmm. Maybe.
No, that's not even the same thing.
Yeah, it says fossilized head crests.
And they're 2 different colors.
Yeah, it's not hitting me as to why. Maybe the different minerals that this one came into contact with
Why is it
when
the
it
same
fossilized.
why is it the same place?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's all. I would think that they would both look like this. Hmm. The path to this discovery began with a brief mention in 1950s monograph. A French geologist had noted a single saber shaped fossil tooth They resembled those of the giant predator Carcharodontosaurus, which also coexisted with Spinosaurus aegypticus. Possibly this individual too. First identified in Egypt's western desert at the turn of the last century. No one had been back to the to that tooth site in over 70 years. It was an adventure and a half wandering to the sand seas to search for this locality and then find an even more remote fossil area with a new species. Now, all the young scholars who joined me are co authors on the report gracing the cover of Science. During the search, the team met a Tuareg man who guided them by motorbike into the center of the Sahara, who he had where he had seen large fossil bones. After nearly a full day of travel and uncertainty, he brought them to a fossil rich area. With limited time before returning to camp, the researchers collected teeth and jaw bones belonging to the new Spinosaurus species. Wow. So they were able to also find distinct teeth from Spinosaurus aegypticus instead for mirabilis. What was it? Yeah, Spinosaurus was first discovered by German paleontologist Ernst Stromer, who was also a paleoartist like Charles R. Knight. And he discovered Spinosaurus over in Egypt back in 1915. Unfortunately, though, when the bones, I believe, were sent to England, in London, they were destroyed during the bombings. So that's why for
You talking about
decades,
World War II?
I swear it was World War. There weren't bombings in World War One over in London.
I honestly don't remember.
I was attracted to the Sahara like a magnet. I sat there 30 years ago. Oh, what I was trying to get at was that for decades, Spinosaurus had a wide range of different looks and depictions. So you had it where Spinosaurus was given a very round and more of a robust jaw structure compared to the more slender look of different species of Spinosaurs like Suchomimus. And it wasn't really until like the 1980s or 1990s that we start seeing a Spinosaurus with a more narrow jaw structure, similar to other Spinosaurs. And the depictions were also based off of the photographs that were taken, luckily, of those specimens that were discovered back in 1915. Like different, what was it? Elongated back vertebrae. I think part of the skull was also discovered. So there's nowhere else like it. It's as beautiful as it is daunting. After excavating more than 100 tons of fossils over the years, if you can brave the elements and are willing to go after the unknown, you might just uncover a lost world. It's a recent picture too. So these, I'm guessing these are all bones. So with only a few hours to spend after discovering the remote fossil area, Janguabai in November of 2019, Spanish paleontologist Dan Vidal hovers over a quickly gathered collection of fossils, which included the crest and hold on, which included the crest and jaw. I think it's because we're talking about the Sahara. Okay, well, okay. So this is of the new scimitar crest Spinosaurus mirabilis. So the discovery strengthens Niger's standing in paleontology and archaeology. Fe- what? What? Fields in which Sereno has long been involved. Um, I don't know how this would help with archaeology. Pretty sure Spinosaurus wasn't creating civilizations, but um, I don't know. Maybe he had something to do with ancient Egypt. So he has led an award-winning international effort to build the world's first zero energy museum. Oh yeah, I would say the environmentalism of Paul Sereno is not new. Okay, so let's see. Anything else here? Okay. At the University of Chicago's South Side Fossil Lab in Washington Park, the team cleaned and CT scanned the fossils, then created a digital reconstruction of the skull for publication. Using that model, Sereno collaborated with paleoartist Dani Navarro in Madrid to produce a dynamic scene showing flesh reconstructions of the dinosaur competing over coelacanth carcass. Navarro also constructed a detailed 3D physical model of Spinosaurus mirabilis by adding muscle and skin over a skeletal framework. Other paleoartists in Chicago, Jonathan Metzger, and Italy, David Latorre, animated Navarro's model, recreating the action featured on the cover of Science. Advances in. Okay. Anything else? No, that's it. Okay. It's really good to hear about this species of Spinosaurus. Let's head to the first video. Skunk attacks raccoon family. Oh, no. Oh, no. You would think the mother raccoon would know. Oh, no. Oh,
No,
no.
I think the skunk just attacked him.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. But looked like she was scavenging some food.
That is just mean. Uh, uh,
I don't know. There isn't any food there.
I think the skunk's just being mean.
No idea. Yeah, they can be. Was that a side striped skunk? No. I'll figure it out. So the edgemalaysia.com. Saving the Malayan tiger by protecting its prey. Here we have some sandbar deer. Males can reach over 800 pounds or pushing over 350 kilograms. So let's see. This article first appeared in the Edge Malaysia Week. Oh, okay. Of the many threats to the survival of tigers in Malaysia, one of the most overlooked is the decline of its primary prey, the sambar deer, one of the largest deer species in Southeast Asia. Marked by a dark brown coat and large antlers in males, sambar deer are vital in sustaining the population of its predator. Sambar deer numbers continue to decline, however, owing to habitat loss from deforestation, poaching for meat and its antlers, and competition with livestock for food resources. Actually, when I think of sambar deer, competition with livestock just doesn't hit me. Like you hear of habitat degradation, and you could say, well, that's part of the vegetation competition, but it just doesn't occur. At least to me in this instance. Consequently, some studies have shown that areas with fewer sandbar deer also have declining tiger populations. This phenomenon is also linked with increased human wildlife conflict as the tigers, starved of their prey and habitat, wander into villages in search of food. So, if the sandbar deer is gone, then the tiger has to rely on wild pigs, barking deer, cheetah deer, sea row, and other smaller species. So, it has to compete with leopards and other predators for prey, says Aslan Muhammad, head of the Tiger Conservation Program at WWF Malaysia. Well, the freaky part about this is that since this animal is having to, which is the largest carnivore in the area, if it's preying on smaller animals, and if this continues for a certain amount of generations, you could have it where the tigers become smaller in a short amount of time. Let's see. Currently, the exact population of sandbar deer in peninsular Malaysia is unclear, but estimates range from 700 to 1,000 individuals. Whoa! Oh, that's not good. According to a Department of Wildlife and National Parks for Hitzland spokesman. That is low. Oh, that's bad. The primary habitats for the sandbar deer are in protected areas under the stewardship of Hilton, which include Taman. Here we go. Negara Bahang, Taman Negara Terengganu, Taman Negara Kelantan. So is the good news guy, is that Indian? The Muppet?
All news is good news with Gary Gnu.
Yeah, it's except no, it could be African because there's the Gnu antelope. I don't know. Anyway, and the Tengku Hassanal Wildlife Reserve. So sandbar deer are rarely detected outside protected areas. Okay, that is odd, considering many species of animals. Well, okay, maybe not including certain populations, wildlife populations over in like Central Africa, like adjacent to the Congo. But in many times,
What are you
especially in the
saying?
huh?
What are you saying?
That animals are often seen in protected areas, especially in the United States, or that are present in protected areas. They tend to be seen much more outside of those zones,
So they're seen more often outside of the protected areas than inside the protected areas.
depending on where. Yes, especially where the populations are larger. Okay, so which account for only 16% of the total available habitat for the deer in the peninsula, according to a 2014 study titled Extinction Process of the Sandbar Deer in Peninsular Malaysia. The sandbar deer have lost more than half of their historic range in the past century, and only a quarter of their current habitat is protected. The study was conducted by scientists from the Malaysian Conservation Alliance for Tigers, WWF Malaysia, the Wildlife Conservation Society Malaysia Program, and Traffic Southeast Asia. That last one's a weird one. Maybe it just has to do with like wildlife traffic, as in migration movements. Massive and sustained recovery of sandbar deer is absolutely central to Malayan tiger recovery. This should be one of the top priorities of the Wildlife Authority, warns Datuk Dr. John Payne, CEO of the non governmental organization Bringing Back Our Rare Animals. So, a main threat to the sandbar deer is hunting. It is the only wild meat species consistently hunted across all communities. Oh, geez, making it especially vulnerable to human exploitation. Wow. Okay, sandbar deer are targeted both for their meat and as trophies. There's barely any of them there, and people are taking them out. But this isn't surprising, especially also in certain areas of Western Sub-Saharan Africa. But you could even say the Middle East, certain parts of South America.
Well, except Saudi Arabia.
I would think though,
Aren't they protecting everything?
yeah, certain areas, but I take that with a grain of salt. They probably are y- killing them in those regions, considering it also used to be quite tradition. So let's see. Um, hmm. Okay, in fact, oh,
Sorry.
the hunting of sandbar deer is a long history in peninsular Malaysia. Payne notes that they have been hunted intensively for more than 130 years. By the late 19th century, many rural communities owned firearms primarily for hunting. Yeah, I would think you were colonized by the Dutch. Or the Portuguese, I don't remember. With the sandbar deer being among the most prized game, for many years, hunting the deer with a license was legal in the region. Deer are particularly valued locally as food, which creates constant hunting pressure. The species' slow breeding rate means that even limited hunting can rapidly reduce populations to dangerously low levels, says Lao Ching Fong, acting director, Perak State Park Corp. Okay, that name actually makes sense for the area. Everything else sounded like we were over in India or Bangladesh. I was a bit confused. Okay, let's see. That is interesting considering it can be quite strict to hunt white-tailed deer, which are abundant in different areas of the United States. And um, in some of these areas, there's hundreds of thousands of them. And here there's less than 1,000, and people are still taking them out. So let's see. In response, Malaysian authorities introduced a 6-year hunting moratorium in 2009, which was extended until 2016 because of continued threats to the sandbar deer. To further protect the species, it was formally classified as totally protected in 2022, totally, under the Wildlife Conservation Act 2010, Act 716, which prohibits all hunting, possession, and trade without special permit. The sandbar deer is also listed under the sixth schedule of Act 716, which is the list of wildlife for food for indigenous peoples. I've okay, I I haven't heard of a Southeast of an East Asian country or specifically Southeast Asian, and they use the term well, it's for the indigenous peoples. I'm pretty sure, like,
They're all indigenous.
at least what 98.9% of people in Malaysia are indigenous to. Okay, well, if you're not saying maybe if you're including certain Chinese or Vietnamese peoples, because I'm just thinking maybe Europeans that immigrated there. Um, okay, somewhere between 90 to 95% of people are indigenous to Malaysia. What on earth? Um, This allows the indigenous peoples to hunt or capture sandbar deer for their personal and family consumption only. The species cannot be sold or exchanged for food, money, or any other item. You're still killing. There's like still less than 1,000 of them. There comes to a point where it's just insane, and there's not really a concern for them going extinct. I mean, um, it's just that there comes to a point where if the local people are still going to kill them despite them being so rare. And let's say they do know that they're rare, then what's the point in, putting efforts out there to protect them? You
Don't
might
they
as
they
well
do
just
that
let them
with
go extinct.
whales?
Huh?
Don't they do that with whales too?
Um yeah, you could say that. Yeah, that's also an issue with certain species of dolphins, maybe certain populations of whales.
In Alaska.
Um
Yeah, can't the so-called, Eskimos?
yeah, but the narwhals and belugas populations in those areas, they have there's enough of them for, like, the, harvest that occurs. I don't know how many they're allowed to take out. Doesn't really negatively affect the population.
What about blue?
I don't know who specifically hunts blues, but, um, yeah, I would prefer that they're not hunted because there's only somewhere between, what, 15 to 25,000 blue whales, and that's not a large population, and they take a long time to, um transition from, birth to actually, you could take the whole gestation period into account and then finally reaching maturity to make more blue whales. So let's see. Okay, so the Belem Temenger landscape, where sandbar deer were historically abundant, is one of the country's largest continuous forest complexes, critical haven for wildlife and a hotspot for poaching. The area includes the Royal Belem State Park and the Temenger Forest Reserve. Laos says poachers often take advantage of salt licks, which can be either mineral rich water sources or soil patches where animals frequently gather. So poachers exploit this predictable behavior by either lying in wait to shoot their targets or setting snares. Yeah, snares are irritating, especially over in Africa. Oh, what on earth? There we go. So, it's just going over the poaching stuff. Okay, so as residents living within the conservation area, these indigenous groups, it's just goofy, play a pivotal role as conservation allies.
I
Says
thought it just
Lao.
said they were hunting them.
Well, yeah, I'm confused. Like, it's not saying it's anybody else. Um, okay. So play these indigenous groups play a pivotal role as conservation allies. Currently, the state park is one of Malaysia's highest densities patrollers, consisting primarily of trained Asli community members. It's funny. These rangers serve as the eyes and ears of law enforcement, although they lack the authority to make arrests or prevent entry into force. Wait, Th that's interesting. When they suspect poaching activity, they report it to the authorities who then take action. Royal Bellum is also not an easy place to enter. Controlled entry points, strict patrolling, and natural geographical barriers limit access, making it difficult for poachers to operate undetected. A checkpoint at the lake further restricts entry, and the dense terrain and limited alternative routes add to the challenge. As a result, poachers often avoid the area, opting for locations with easier access and lower risk of capture. In stark contrast is the neighboring Temenger Forest Reserve, observes WWF Malaysia's Aslan,
Whoa, whoa. WWF, the World Wrestling Federation?
World Wildlife Fund. Yeah, I guess you could say the tigers wrestle a bit. So it is not protected and has. I've literally forgotten that we were focusing to a major extent on tigers. It's been so much on the poaching of deer that like the tiger makes you truly want to um like help just put in more conservation efforts to the area. And if it was just the deer, but it was let's see, like restoration of habitat was occurring, and eventually we're going to probably bring in tigers, then that would still be quite hyped. But too much of the just poaching the sandbar deer, there comes to a point where you don't even want to put any efforts into it. So anyway, let's hope the tigers pop back up. Let's see. Okay, it is not protected. Oh, jeez, and has faced wait. Hold on a second. Okay, wait. What's not protected? Is there a forest? In stark contrast is neighboring Temgur Forest Reserve. It is not protected and has faced a decline in sandbar deer populations because of poaching. Okay, here's the thing. This isn't necessarily surprising when it comes to different protected areas, and not just over in Asia, Africa. This is quite common. You have one protected area that has that you have rangers protecting the animals, the ecosystem in general, and there's a neighboring protected area. In fact, there can be several, and there isn't any protection yet. They're classified as game reserves or national parks. So this is quite unfortunate. So has faced declined sandbar deer populations because of poaching. The area, which is an active logging zone, faces greater challenges owing to its accessibility via lakes and roads. For instance, the Jarek-Jelai East-West Highway possesses a barrier to animal movement from Temenger to Belém. I keep thinking of Belgium, making deer more vulnerable to poaching. Logging roads further increase access, allowing poachers to penetrate deeper into the habitat. So it says Aslan. Must be a fan of Narnia. Data from camera trap studies from 2009 to 2011 show that Temenger recorded only 6 instances of sandbar sightings. Oh, geez, that's not good. Meanwhile, Bellum had more than 500 in the same period. Whoa. Oh, okay. So Bellum is the protected one. Temenger, almost nothing. According to a 2009 to 2011 study titled Conserving Tigers, finally, in Malaysia, a science driven approach for eliciting conservation policy change by scientists from World Wildlife Fund Malaysia and Fauna and Flora International. In tandem with the higher presence of sandbar deer, tiger density in the state park was also 3 times higher in Belém than in Temenger. That's very good to see. Okay. Worryingly, the decline of the sandbar deer population could cause predators such as tigers to turn to livestock or human inhabited areas for sustenance. Tigers have been forced to eat domestic animals and even humans to move into villages and across highways in search of food. This is because sandbar deer populations are depleted and suppressed, with no chance given to recover, in tandem with a massive loss of wild pigs due to African swine fever since 2021. Yeah, I've been hearing about that swine fever. Like, I think you had it where um, certain countries are going to eradicate their wild boar population so it wouldn't affect the domestic pigs. In Temenger, reports from Orang Asli communities indicate a rise in cattle attacks by tigers, a rare phenomenon in the past. Oh. A villager from Kampung Chong in Temenger tells ESG that logging activities in the area also contributed to the decline of the deer population, which struggles to survive when forested areas are cleared. In turn, the lost forest cover forces wildlife such as elephants and tigers to enter the village. I would, well, I mean, they do enter villages, but um, I'm guessing maybe taking advantage of their plantations. Hmm. Now, how long is this? Uh, oh, okay. Um, this is probably important news, but I think we should. I'm. It's geez. Okay, yeah, it's dragging on for a long period. Um, we're just going to head to the next video. This is too much. Okay, yeah. Sandbar deer are under threat. All right. Okay, what's going on here?
Floppy Rabbit said, "Don't we see videos of tigers walking through villages all the time?"
Um, probably. I just haven't seen any recently. It's more common with elephants, probably because there's many more of them. Yeah. Oh, was he just standing right? Is this fake? I don't think this is real.
Why?
Unless there's something wrong with that crocodile.
He bit the porcupine.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Well, I mean, I noticed that he bit him, but I didn't notice or wasn't hitting me that he might have porcupine like quills. Did he swallow some of the quills?
So, yeah, he hit the edge of it, and I guess it punctured his mouth.
Or his eye?
Yeah.
Oh, ouch. That wasn't hitting me. Whew. Alrighty. From Sci News. Heading back in time. Um, Balinoptera berti, new fossil whale species discovered. So Robert Bosenecker, a PhD, also this has been an earlier article, but we're just going back over it. PhD student with the University of Ontario has discovered an extinct species of whale that lived during the Pliocene between 3.35 to 2.5 million years ago.
We never did this.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think so. The newly discovered whale has been named Balanoptera berti in honor of Professor Annalisa Berta from San Diego State University. It belongs to the same genus as mink and fin whales, indicating that the Balanoptera lineage has lasted for about 3 million years. Mr. Bosnecker unearthed the Balanoptera berti's incomplete skull at the Parissima Formation, the San Francisco Bay Area, in 2005. It was encased in a hard concretion that took 5 years to remove. Wow, jeez. Balanoptera berti would have been approximately 5 to 6 meters in length, or somewhere between 17 to 20 feet. Oh, so it's definitely a smaller whale. Slightly smaller than modern minke whales, said Mr. Bosenecker, who is the author of a paper published in the journal Geodiversitas. So, at this time, you would have had animals such as Ototus megalodon roaming the oceans, which is the megalodon shark. Some are familiar with. Let's see. Mr. Bosnecker, in his study, has also put together a record of 21 extinct species of marine mammals that inhabited the North Pacific in the Pliocene. The mix of marine mammals I ended up uncovering was almost completely different to that found in the North Pacific today and to anywhere else at that time. This at first glance looks like a bird skull, but it's actually the whale species. So primitive porpoises and baleen whales were living side by side with comparatively modern marine mammals such as the northern fur seal and right whales. And this was somewhere around 1.5 million to 2 million years before the Ice Age or the Pleistocene epoch. So, in species far geographically and climatically removed from their modern relatives, also featured such as beluga like whales and tusked walruses, which today live in the Arctic. Mr. Bosnecker added, at the same time, at this eclectic mix of ancient and modern type marine mammals was living together, were living together. The marine mammal fauna in the North Atlantic and Southern Ocean were already in the forms we find today. This strange fauna existed up until as recently as 1 or 2 million years ago. Its weirdness was likely maintained by warm equatorial waters and barriers to migration by other marine mammals posed by the newly formed Isthmus of Panama and the still closed Bering Strait. Okay. Let's see. So once the Bering Strait opened and the equatorial Pacific cooled during the Ice Age, modernized marine mammals were able to migrate from other ocean basins into the North Pacific, leading to the mix we see today. Um, well, I will say there was very little. I mean, we got the length in, not sure about the weight, but not a lot was said about this whale. Bit of a mystery, I'd say. Probably a snack for Megalodon and maybe the other large toothed sperm whales of the time. So let's head over to the next video. So, of a ram trying to attack a deer. Oh, I think I've seen this. If this is what I'm thinking of, it was on somebody's ranch, one of their hunting ranches. Yeah, that buck was not taking it. Oh, it's some, it's that Asian species
He
of
just
sheep.
keeps pushing him. Oh, I wanna do that again.
This is literally like this is like the end of the Bambi movie.
What?
Yeah, like if um, now remembering the fight, it's very similar. That buck was not having it. It's almost like he was saying, "Get out of my country." You get it because it's an Asian sheep. Anyway, and he's an American deer. Okay. Um, let's head over to MSN.com. Scientists finally catch sight of rare marsupial that disappeared 80 years ago. Oh, well, who do we have here? Looks like a quote. For the first time in 80 years, a rare and endangered marsupial has been rediscovered in Australia's Pekenini Plains Wildlife Sanctuary at Cape York. The rare marsupial in question is the northern quoll, which has been listed as endangered by IUCN. Due to a long absence, experts assumed it had vanished from the area. However, it shocked everyone when it was detected on a motion sensor camera at the facility. The news was made public by the establishment on January 5th through an Instagram post. After analyzing the footage, experts determined that the northern quoll has established or has adopted some features to protect itself in the sanctuary. The northern quoll is a nocturnal animal, enveloped in a reddish brown fur on the outside and cream fur on the underside. Also, it has white spots on the back with a blackish tail. They mostly live in tree hollows and rock crevices. Northern quoll, also known as North Australian native cat, it's a species of marsupial who once dominated the northern and eastern Australia landscape. Their numbers have declined due to attacks from feral predators like cats, toxic cane toads. Oh yeah, those guys. Habitat loss, and inadequate fire regimes. Uh, Pekanini Plains Wildlife Sanctuary officials used targeted camera deployments in 2015, 2021, and 2023 to locate northern quolls in the facility. These deployments were done because ecologists were concerned that the marsupials had stopped using the facility as their habitat. Since 2008, they have not been detected in any of the surveys conducted by the sanctuary. Well, that's a very blurry picture, but it's good to see that the quoll is in the region. So, sanctuary manager Nick Stock did not believe the vanishing theory. On a hunch, he fixed a camera on an isolated rocky outcrop in the facility back in 2025. In just days, evidence of a northern quoll came forward. It was a fantastic surprise. LNS Strokes, AWC wildlife ecologist, said after years of no sightings, to finally confirm a northern quoll in the sanctuary is hugely uplifting for our team. Actually, let's look up a northern quoll because they're not really giving great pictures of this animal. Let's see. It reinforces the importance of persistence, good science, and managing threats across large landscapes. Stokes added that the footage has provided a roadmap based on which the team can conduct future surveys. It's an exciting sign that targeted science-led conservation is helping keep one of Australia's most threatened marsupials hanging on. And there he is. So these guys aren't very large. They get to about 5 to 8 pounds, or maybe a little over 3 kilograms. And they mostly hunt. They will go after smaller marsupials, and a large part of their diet does consist of different species of insects. They may even go after termites. And there's a few different species of coal throughout
Yeah, that shows
Australia.
how small they are.
Yep, and they are related to the extinct marsupial lion or the Thylacoleo, which could reach somewhere around 250 to 300 pounds or pushing a little over 150 kilograms. But yeah, these guys, I think those were adults too. So let's see, was there anything else? The rocky outcrop where the marsupial was uncovered does not receive any visits from feral cats and has mostly escaped fires due to the facility's fire management programs. Well, that's good to hear. This reveals that the creatures have deliberately chosen a site where the damaging factors are absent. However, cane toads were spotted in the area. It's possible this quoll and hopefully others have adapted their behavior in response to the presence of cane toads. Understanding that resilience could be vital for the species' long term survival. Such insights will hopefully help experts understand what conditions encourage the sustenance of northern quolls in Cape York. Every rediscovery matters. Just when we were close to giving up hope, this little quoll reminds us why we keep searching and why protecting these landscapes at scale is essential. Another quoll was photographed back in 2017 at the neighboring indigenous managed Kanhu Negachi Wenlock and Pasco River IPA by Chulangan Rangers. Oh, okay, that's it. Well, it's good to see the northern quolls making a comeback in the area. Hopefully, there are more. It's not just this one. Can't tell if that's a bear or maybe it's a bison that we're seeing. Could be a. I don't think it's a moose. Where are we in? Oh, okay. Well, fake.
Well, you can hear people talking in the background.
It's AI. Nope. Okay, so heading back in time from Sai News. Yang Hing Long Tengengai, new giant dinosaur discovered in China. Paleontologists from the United States and China have described a new large plant-eating dinosaur that lived in what is now northwestern China during the early Cretaceous, about 100 million years ago. Wow. Well, I'd say for most new species of dinosaurs, a scale bar is 60 centimeters or 2 feet. That is not. Oh well. Hmm. What is that? Somewhere around 40 feet? It's a mid-sized, sauropod. Now, technically, if you're around 12 tons, you're a small sauropod. Now, let's see. So, the new dinosaur named Hong Yinglong de Tangai belonged to a group of dinosaurs known as Titanosauridae. Well, that's a huge group of sauropods during the Cretaceous period, first evolving around 140 million years ago and making it to the very end of the dinosaurs around 66 million years ago. But this animal occurred at the middle Cretaceous, so around the same time as some of the largest species to exist, or slightly beforehand, like animals such as Patagotitan and Argentinosaurus. Those were over in southern and South America. Three teeth, eight vertebrae, the left shoulder blade, the right radius, and ulna of the prehistoric giant were unearthed in the Lenzhou Basin of Gansu Province, northwestern China, in 2008. Oh, and it's also an older discovery as well. So Hong Ying Long Tengai measured about 15 to 18 meters long, or what is that, pushing around 60 feet? And was a medium-sized titanosaur. However, anatomical evidence points to it being a juvenile. Adults may have been larger. Okay, well, yeah, this is probably mid-sized species. The anatomical features of its bones bear some resemblance to another titanosaur from China, Euhelopus zedensky, but the paleontologists were able to identify a number of unique characteristics. The shoulder blade was very long, nearly 2 meters or 6.5 feet, with sides that were nearly parallel, unlike many other titanosaurs whose scapula bow outward. Said, I
Oh, outward or bow?
think bow. Um, said Miss Ligu Lee. of the University of Pennsylvania, who is the lead author of a paper published in the Open Access Journal Plus One. Let's see. The scapula was so long indeed that it did not appear to fit in the animal's body cavity if placed in a horizontal or vertical orientation, as is the case with other dinosaurs. The bone must have been oriented at an angle of 50 degrees from the horizontal. In addition, an unfused portion of the shoulder blade indicated that the specimen was a juvenile or a subadult. The scapula and coracoid aren't fused here. It is open, leaving potential for growth. Thus, a full grown adult might be larger than this 15 to 18-meter long individual. Interesting. I definitely didn't hear. I have heard of Yong Hin Long, but I didn't realize that it was a juvenile. So this is quite interesting and new. Okay. And it makes me want to take a look at Euhelopus. So let's head over to the next video. Um, I mean, it's nope, fake. That's fake. Okay, so heading forward in time from news.mongabay.com. Reforestation and wild pig decline spark surge in miniature deer in Singapore. Oh, well, these little guys. So, let's see. The rabbit-sized and nocturnal and elusive. Oh wait, rabbit-sized, nocturnal, and elusive. The greater mouse deer hasn't been seen in Singapore for more than 80 years. Researchers long presumed it was locally extinct. In 2008, however, researchers confirmed sightings of the pint-sized ungulates, Tragulus napu, on Pulai Ubin. Okay, Tragulus napu is this greater mouse deer. A 10 square kilometer or 4 square mile island in the Jar Strait that separates Singapore's main island from peninsular Malaysia to the north. The team quickly set up a monitoring program to learn more about the small population. Wow, that is quite astounding that there are these mouse deer over on this 4 square mile island. I mean, there were certain mammoth species that were pretty tiny too. They expected to see numbers slowly recover as also elephants. Anyway, they expect to see numbers slowly recover as new suitable habitats became available thanks to ongoing forest restoration programs on the island. But the scale of what they recorded over the next 15 years astonished them. I had to perform the analyses multiple times and check my data to be sure there was no mistake. Marcus Chua, curator of mammals at the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum at the National University of Singapore. In a new study published in Biological Conservation, Chua and his colleagues document a five-fold increase in the population density of greater mouse deer on Pulau Ubin between 2009 and 2024. By 2024, the mouse deer population density was 3 times higher than previously recorded anywhere in the species range. While the rehabilitation of forest habitats will have given the mouse deer an initial boost, the researchers conclude the most dramatic surge was triggered by the outbreak of African swine fever in 2023. Sheesh. The virus, which is infectious and deadly to wild domestic pigs, wiped out more than 98% of Singapore's wild pigs by 2024. Ouch. Jeez. There was an urgency to find out about the ecological consequence of such a major event, Chuan noted, especially given the paucity of information about how wild pigs and greater mouse deer interact with one another. Yep, here's a better picture of him. So, using historical monitoring data and new data collected in 2024 by both line transect and camera trap sampling, the team calculated the population densities of Pulau Ubin's 2 resident ungulates. So, by 2024, there was an estimated 293 mouse deer per square kilometer, about 759 per square mile, spiking significantly just after the onset of ASF and the pig mortality in 2023. Yeah,
Pig morality.
yeah, I wouldn't say they have too much considering they will eat their own kind. Let's see. So, in contrast, they estimated the wild pig density was no more than 30 individuals per square kilometer or 78 per square mile. Wait a second. In 2024, I think that's backwards. I think it should be maybe 78 individuals. No, hold on a second. 30. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense. Never mind. The team attribute the skyrocketing mouse deer numbers to a 1 to 2 easing of ecological pressure on the greater mouse deer, the only ungulate species besides the pigs on the island, reduced competition for food, and less predation pressure. Don't worry about the pigs, though, going after them. There is competitive overlap in their diet. While wild pigs are generalist omnivores and greater mouse deer are herbivorous, both feed on understory vegetation and fallen fruits and flowers. Both species were photographed during the study, feasting on durian blossoms scattered across the forest floor. Wild pigs might also exert predation pressure on greater mouse deer. Though there are no records of them eating mouse deer, studies document wild pigs preying on rabbits and other species of deer, like cheetah deer in India and pampas deer in Argentina. Oh, right. Huh. I haven't heard of those specifically cheetah deer or pampas deer going after rabbits. I might have heard like elk or possibly mule deer going after
It
rabbits.
said the pigs were going after the rabbits.
Mm. Oh, I swear though, I think I've heard of them possibly going after the rodents. Definitely birds. Let's see. But yeah, geesh. Okay. Yeah, pigs going after cheetah deer in India. Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah, it's quite nuts. I mean, they are pigs. The diminutive mouse deer could certainly end up as food for them. According to the study, the mammal dynamics are clear evidence of a dramatic ecological cascade, a phenomenon in which a dramatic shift in one species triggers ripple effects throughout the ecosystem, set in motion by the ASF outbreak. The findings underscore the need for long term ecosystem wide monitoring at sites impacted by sudden shifts triggered by disease. So, falling durian flowers attract greater mouse deer on the left and wild pigs on the right, providing a seasonally abundant food for both species. This looks like it's taking place during the day and this at night. So, I wonder if the mouse deer are a bit more nocturnal. Greater mouse deer, which range from southern Thailand to the islands of Borneo and Sumatra over in Indonesia, belongs to an evolutionary distinct lineage of miniature deer, also known as Chevrotins, that defend their territories not by clashing antlers but with fang like canines. They're also extraordinarily prolific breeders. So they reach sexual maturity at just 5 months and have a relatively short gestation period of also roughly 5 months. Females can also conceive again within hours of giving birth. Whoa. Actually, that I didn't know. That is very astonishing.
How do they know that?
Um, well, also, was it a successful gestation afterwards?
No, how do they even know that they could, conceive within hours of giving birth?
Now, well, I'm guessing maybe I think they're captive greater mouse deer. The problem is that in certain species in captivity as opposed to in the wilderness, they will sometimes breed differently, or they will show different behaviors. Others, though, they can be quite similar. So I don't know if this is truly this takes place during the wild or in the wild or in captivity. So the researchers note in their study that this reproductive efficiency equips the species for population explosion should a sudden abundance of resources and suitable habitat become available, such as when their competitors died off in 2023. Oh, the pigs died off. Well, yeah, that could help them. Globally, the species is listed as least concern. What? On the IUCN Red List. However, the diminutive ungulate is so elusive and physically similar to other species in its genus that few studies have focused on assessing its conservation status. That is insane. I'm not sure if I would recognize any species of, um, let's say, mammal over a couple of pounds or a kilogram as what least concern. Let's see. Something that's least concern is something like the common North American raccoon, or what else?
How many are there?
Um, I'd say at least 30 to 50 million. So let's see. There could be much more. Um, that's also it's not including like ones over in Japan, Europe. There might have been some that invaded certain parts of like the northern Middle East.
Or you're
Uh,
talking the North American raccoon that's invaded Japan.
yeah. Let's see. Um, yeah, I'd even be quite questionable about certain wild boar populations, and especially with this swine fever outbreak. Now let's see. Their last red list assessment was carried out in 2014. Moreover, very little is known about sensitivity to forest degradation and poaching, leaving isolated subpopulations vulnerable to local extirpation. This makes Palau Ubin a critical site for the species. Kept I kept forgetting that this was a place, and I kept thinking it was a person. I think it was because from maybe a paleontologist in the last paleo article. According to Robert Teo, Director of Conservation at the National Parks Board of Singapore and a co author of the study, Pulau Ubin remains the primary known habitat for the greater mouse deer in Singapore. He said, adding that NParks plans to continue with the forest restoration efforts to further enhance habitats on Pulau Ubin. Um, I'm just looking again. Oh, it's not too much longer. And it looks like some relevant stuff is going to occur. So, Pulau Ubin wasn't always swathed in prime mouse deer habitat. In fact, up until the late 1990s, it had been largely cleared for granite quarrying, rubber plantations, and aquaculture ponds. Since the quarries were shut down and agricultural communities relocated to Singapore's main island at the turn of the century, habitats began to naturally revegetate. Huh. The rehabilitation work carried out by N Parks aimed to improve the availability of habitats for wildlife. Abandoned quarries were converted to wetlands, shrimp ponds rehabilitated into mangroves, and forest areas enriched with more than 40,000 native tree seedlings, such as Cordia subcordata and the critically endangered Copsia singaporensis. I think these are, I don't know what species of plants or tree this is, or both of them are. Besides the greater mouse deer boom, other signs are emerging that show forest restoration is giving local wildlife a boost. Camera traps record an array of other species in 2024, including a female Malayan tapir, endangered species only occasionally sighted in Singapore. Well, that's good to hear. Okay, well, these are young wild boars. Also, Impala Ubin back in 2024. Oh, so they're recovering from, I guess, the swine fever. So the steady increase in greater mouse deer on the island over the past 15 years is, I'll just keep going. An exceptional example of Singapore's regreening and reforestation efforts succeeding in recreating habitat for wildlife. According to Theres Lamperti, a biologist at the University of Florida who wasn't involved in the study. Lamperti, who led a study in 2023 that documented how various mammals naturally recolonized Singapore, said the mouse deer recovery is the most dramatic case she's ever seen of a sharp drop in one species correlating with an explosive rise in another. Somewhat related research on ecological cascades has connected defaunation to rodent increases for similar reasons, but has not found such dramatic results. Research in 2015, for instance, linked a 45% surge in rodent numbers in Brazil's Atlantic forest to crashing populations of white lipped peccaries, likely due to reduced competition for food. Well, also, peccaries will eat rodents. So Lamperti said she would be interested to see how mammal population dynamics are playing out in other parts of Southeast Asia, reeling from African swine fever. However, the magnitude of Pulau Ubin's ecological cascade might not be seen elsewhere. Singapore has a specific ecological context not typically seen in other parts of the region, such as low poaching pressure and few natural mammal predators. It might be a lot more subtle and perhaps not really a substantial ecological cascade in other parts of Southeast Asia, but a point that I think managers should monitor. With mouse deer numbers now so high on Pulau Ubin, the authors recommend further research on their potential to reshape forest ecology, long term monitoring of their herbivory on plants and seedlings, and their role in seed dispersal will be vital. The team also plans to continue tracking both mouse deer and wild pigs as they continue to recover and interact. The camera traps photographed piglets frolicking in front of the lens in 2024, a sure sign wild pigs are breeding and could bounce back from the brink. Whether they regain dominance or settle into a new balance with the considerable larger mouse deer population, however, remains unknown. For Chua, the remarkable recovery of the tiny deer on Pulau Ubin is reassuring proof that habitat restoration is a conservation strategy that pays off in the end. Okay, so this is really good to hear with the restoration of the greater mouse deer. So, thanks for joining, and we will see you at 6 p.m. today. And as well, we are streaming on both Rumble, Kick, and YouTube. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. And remember that nothing is better than all animals.